I think that sounds like it might be fun.
Other reason people like it is because of the when you get maximum range in it, you become invincible.
Hello, I'm starting this video. We are a tiny bit early, but we have somebody waiting, and I'm sure we'll get a few more viewers. By the way, I've only got a few people in class today, and the rest are at home, so I'm actually going to mention the next assignment after we go over the current thing. I'm going to mention what's next, and you can work ahead, and it's actually something that's perfect for doing at home when you're not in a room with other people. So, because you'll be recording something. So, I'm actually going to post that next time, but today I wanted to look at the slideshow. This is a project. It's going to be 3 assignments. We got the getting started, we got the slideshow, and then the final one will be the recording to make a little video. Don't worry, very short and simple. But the slideshow, I've only got 2, and a lot of people are still working on it. That's fine. I wanted to maybe show an example, maybe show just kind of generally what I'm looking for in order to help people get started if they're not quite sure. So what I said in this first assignment, which was just kind of brainstorming, was you're going to pick a story, a science fiction story, and it could be a book, a movie, a series, a game, something like that. Hopefully small enough that you can describe it in a quick slideshow. You know, if it's like a comic book that's been going for 70 years and has movies and other stuff, then you really need to narrow it down. You don't want to give a hour-long speech here, but we'll show maybe an example of that today. And so first you tell us what happens in the story, because I would imagine that a lot of these are not already known by everyone in the class. If you talk about Star Wars, then you'll probably get a head start because people know what happened. But if you talk about anything else, you need to say, like, hey, here's what I'm covering, here's the basics. Maybe you can save the end if there's a big twist or something, but the premise, the general idea, what would be on the back of the box or the back of the book. And then tell us about the sci-fi stuff. You know, there might be a bunch of little gadgets, but there's usually 1 or 2 that are the core, you know, that the story revolves around. So if you were doing, for example, Terminator, we were talking about that in class because we were thinking about getting a new header image every once in a while. Terminator has robots and laser guns, and in the opening scene in the future they seem to have like hovercraft or something. There are you know, obviously humanoid robots, and some of them have skin, and that's the core of the story. But most of all, it's the time travel. Like, that's the thing that Terminator is about. It's about people or robots trying to go back in time and prevent something from happening or protect someone. And that would be probably, you know, what I focused on. I wouldn't focus on like, oh, some machine that they showed for 5 seconds in the beginning, even though that stuff is cool. And then next you want to mention, is it real science? Is it more the physics stuff that you could cover in real life now? Or is it stuff that is more like a concept that, which by the way is just as good. I'm not saying that the real science is better and then the other stuff is just silly. They're both very useful, but it's interesting to think about. You know, like for example with Terminator, in the story there's like an AI that becomes self-aware and takes over the whole internet. They call it Skynet, and that is something that people, you know, consider as possible in real life as people talk about AI and what happens if it, you know, gains a certain amount of intelligence and power. That's potentially real. It's not like giving you details, but it is interesting. The time travel, maybe less possible, but you never know. And then what makes this special? Why do we care? Why do you like it? What is the, you know, the pull, the thing that keeps you interested, or the thing that makes it special? For example, again, Terminator, there are lots of stories with robots and there are lots of stories with time travel, but why is this one, you know, well known and beloved and so on? And then finally, what's the message? And you don't have to get too, you know, poetic, but pretty much 90% of the time when you have a sci-fi element, there's a reason why the author put that in there, to tell some kind of story that they couldn't have otherwise. For example, something about fate. In Terminator, they talk about fate, and they talk about how, you know, is this a loop that's just going to happen no matter what, or is this something we can change? Is this something that there's a contribution for us to make that determines what happens next, or is it already set in motion and we just play our parts? That's something you can do in real life. People talk about that in the context of religion and philosophy, but in a story you can use metaphor, and you can say, well, what if you could literally go back and forth in time? And that's a more interesting way to show these concepts. So anyway, I don't want a slideshow with lots and lots of text and lots of paragraphs. You're not writing an essay. I want you to throw a few bullet points and a few images, and then, like I said, the next part will be speaking, and you can speak. So, for example, let's throw one together. I'm going to start up the slideshow and show sort of the bones, the framework that I might suggest. Okay, so I'm going to hit new, and then I'm going to wait for the file types. I'm going to go to Google Slides. And I want to do one that is not already taken, so I'm not going to do Star Wars or something, because I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But I was thinking, you know, there's a video game that I played last year, and I'm still thinking about it because I just really like the story. It's a PlayStation game called Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, God. And people are talking. And other people are talking about it.
Oh, I heard a reaction in real life. There's a sequel coming. We don't know when, but probably in a year or two. And I'm looking forward to it because I think it's great. So let's say this is my title slide. And then let's say the first couple are going to cover story. Okay? Whenever you see the assignment, oh, where did I go? The assignment has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That doesn't mean one slide for each one. You don't have to do one slide and then just cram everything in there. You can do one that's spread out. It takes 2 or 3. So for the story, let's give ourselves 3. And that doesn't mean 3 times the work. That just means 3 times the space. Okay, we're going to spread it out, make it nice and free to breathe. If you want to add a couple bullet points and one picture, well, then you can make the picture nice and big. And on the bullet points, you can make the text nice and big. There's no reason to, you know, cram it all in. So for the story of this game, Horizon is a 2 timeline kind of thing. Like there's currently what's happening in the story with the main characters, but then there's a flashback of learning what happened in the past. There's no time travel. It's just investigation of learning what happened. But there's still a big double timeline element. So I'm going to start with the present day for them. It's the future for us. And then maybe in the second slide say, oh, here's what they find out, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's say you want to mention your setting, your main character, all the stuff that you might see in the beginning of a story. If you're reading a book, it's in the first chapter you have exposition. If you're reading a play, then they introduce the characters and talk about where they are and that kind of thing. Pretty standard. So it's set in the future. We have, I'm doing bullet points. They're not even full sentences yet. We can go back and make it prettier later, but like I said, I want to show a sort of quick beginning. So the thing in the story is you got these tribal humans. They're living in small groups in pretty like Neolithic era housing, lots of wood, lots of animal skins, things like that. They don't have fancy tools, except in this world there are robots in the wild. There are these robots that act as part of the ecosystem. They graze and convert plants into fuel, and some of them act as sentries and watch out, and some of them drink up the water and use that as a resource. And so they're sort of in the ecosystem just like animals, and they exist right alongside animals. And the humans hunt them, so they take the pieces and take the fuel and take the armor and so on. So they use that. So they have this sort of tribal element plus a little bit of sci-fi, even though they didn't make it. They don't know where this stuff comes from. So the thing about that story is the visual. Like when you see that, you get it right away, and you get the idea of like, oh, we've got these people with bows and arrows right next to giant robots. So obviously you want to show a picture because that's the best way. I'm going to give this this one is from the sequel, but you got the main character right there riding on a robot horse with some robot birds flying above. So what I do is I download an image, and then it goes to the bottom of your browser, and then you can just like drag it from there. Sometimes it works if you just drag it. Boom, there you go. Other times you have to do like the insert and then drag it into the little box that pops up. I'm going to try that. I actually want it to be nice and big, something like that. And then I can do my bullet points on the side. You can take the text box and change the scope so that your stuff doesn't overlap. One thing you want to avoid is to have like really cluttered colors. If I tried to do the text on top of the image, it might work, but I might have to go with some weird color scheme in order to make it readable. And you want to make it nice and readable. Okay, so trying to get my text working here. I'm not getting the cursor. Okay. Our main character is named Aloy, and she's the one in the picture. So like clearly it helps if you have your main character in the picture, and then people will be able to connect it right away. If this was Star Wars, I'd probably want to have Luke in the picture, unless you're doing, the prequels or something. But if you show something, then you mention it, and if you mention a name, then that person should probably be in the picture. And so our main character, the thing that starts off the story is she finds this device called a focus. It's like a little chip you put on your ear, and it gives a readout of info, holograms, sort of like an ARG, augmented reality thing with, hey, here's what this is, here's some info about this. And so she learns about the past, the people who built this technology. Uh-oh, I'm having too much text. You see, I'm running out of space. I don't want to make it smaller. I don't want to make it crammed in. Where did the tech come from? What happened to the people in the past? So the idea is that these people are relatively primitive, but somebody in the past built the robots, built the computers, built the focus device, etc., etc. So step 2, let's have another picture and some more details. So we learned that in the past, humans built robots to clean the environment. As you go through this game, you find like bunkers and buildings and remnants of the past, and you can access the info. So normally if a human walked through this stuff, they would see nothing because it was all ruins. But since Aloy has this focus, this little chip that can connect to devices and like display their data and stuff, she can see, oh, this is a recording of what happened, or this is a text file of their records and whatever. And they learn that humans built robots to clean the environment because the environment was full of pollution and carbon dioxide and all this stuff that we are leading up to in our current world. But then started making them for war. So they started making like, robots that would replace soldiers and robots that would fight in territorial disputes, kind of like the stuff you see in those Boston Dynamics videos where the guy's like testing robots if they can make it through an obstacle course or survive being kicked and stuff like that. But of course, the machines started taking over. In the story, it's not like Terminator. They're not controlled by one super intelligent hive mind like Skynet. These are actually pretty simple. They just do their little job of what's in front of them. However, if they started having some that can produce more and that can produce their own fuel, then they just keep going, keep making more, keep reproducing, just like animals would, or just like a fungus would or something. And they start to devour the plant life and everything else. And so we learn what happened and how humanity survived, because in the middle of the story you learn that the machines started taking over and eating everything and reproducing infinitely, and then it's like, well, humanity is just done. How did they survive at all? Because we see the ones currently in the story. So how did they get to some kind of survival? These are the sort of the bad guys. They're called Pharaoh, which is named after the guy who made them. I don't want to spoil it, I suppose, because the way you find out how it happened is the whole story, where you go into new places and explore the the data files and the holograms and all that good stuff. So to me, I originally gave 2 or 3 slides for story, but let's just shorten it to 2, and I can add more if I was deciding to fill in details. If I showed this to somebody and they didn't understand, I might have to add more, or if I wanted to show more pictures or something. So let's say the tech in the story, it's basically one thing. It's the machines. In this case, they're not super intelligent. They're more like animals. Each one can eat and reproduce and do its little job, but they're not like planning domination or anything. Yeah, so like I said, I don't want to leave out the key stuff. Yeah, let's go from there. And there are there's one more thing that happens in the past that I don't want to spoil, but as you go through, you see that like, oh, they built one thing to sort of save them and sort of make it so that humans can still be around in the part of the story that we play. And the character who does that, I don't know if I'll be able to find a good picture. There's a character in the past named Elizabeth Sobek. I'm talking too long. I want to make this video shorter, but let's go from here. Yeah, what the heck. Whoop. So there we go. And let's say I'm actually gonna cut it out now because I don't want to make a video that's 1,000,000 hours long, but you get the idea. I want your slideshows to be kind of like this. You can take time and make it a little prettier, give it a theme, give it a nice font, give it a nice color scheme, and I'll do that on mine just to show the steps as we go. But if you have some slides like this, maybe 2 or 3 for the story, maybe 2 or 3 for the tech, maybe a little bit of real science, depends on the actual story. In this game, it's actually not bad, like, even though it's got like giant robot dinosaur looking things, the real sense behind it is not bad. So I'll add a slide about that. What makes it special? Why do I remember this and care about it? I'll add one of those, and then what's the message? So I'll try to do that without spoiling it, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of show that you can open one of these and start to put it together without copying giant paragraphs of text, without opening up Wikipedia and taking huge elements of stuff you didn't write. So I will end the video now, but I'll keep on doing this and I'll post my example, not to say you have to make it exactly the same, but just as an idea if you are a little bit stuck. If you have a question, let me know. But the plan is today, keep working on this. I'm not going to post a new assignment because you're still working and I'm still grading. But if you are ready and you want to work ahead, the next assignment is going to be this: to present your slides in a video. And do not worry, this is a quick practice version. We'll do a more interesting, more detailed project later, but this is a quick one where I want you guys to make a video using your Chromebooks, or if you're at home, use a desktop. But I recommend this extension called Loom. If you put this on your Chromebook, it allows you to have a little record button up here, and you just go boop, record, and then it has a little webcam insert on the corner, and you can narrate over your slides. This is going to be really quick. I'm going to say 2 or 3 minutes for your video, nothing huge. and I'm not grading your public speaking skills or anything, but it's just a quick version to get us started on using this and being familiar with the tech. If you are at home, that's great, because if we had a bunch of people in the room trying to record their own audio, that would be a little disruptive. But if you're in the room, you can, do it later or go out in the hall or whatever you got to do. Thanks.